couldn't get in the ambulance, couldn't be at the hospital, you know, always going to have questions of what if, what if, what if. I'm lucky he survived.
Yeah.
He's still battling on, but there are others this time, you know, 3 years ago, who weren't in that situation.
Yeah.
We saw him yesterday, didn't we, repeatedly denying that he'd lied to MPs about lockdown parties at Downing Street.
Yeah, yesterday the Prime Minister gave over 3 hours of evidence to a cross-party committee for trying to establish whether he deliberately or recklessly misled Parliament when he said that all rules and guidance had been followed. We can speak to our political correspondent, Louisa James, who was there yesterday for us. Louisa, you sat through the marathon grilling. How was it? And do you think that Boris Johnson did enough to keep his political hopes alive?
Well, I felt like I was watching a classic Boris Johnson performance. It can basically be summed up as sorry, not sorry. He started with a bit of contrition, but he quickly moved to being defiant, defensive, as he said. It was insane to suggest that he had deliberately misled the Commons. From where I was sitting, I could also see the faces of the committee members as they were listening, and I think it's fair to say they looked largely unconvinced by a lot of it, although, to be fair, there was also no real gotcha moment from their side either, more a series of uncomfortable moments, which makes me suspect that they won't be able to say that he deliberately misled the Commons. They are more likely, I suspect, to settle for him recklessly misleading the Commons. Perhaps the biggest winner of the day, though, was Rishi Sunak, who managed to get through his Brexit deal in the middle of it all without a major rebellion, who slipped out his tax returns halfway through the day without them generating the kind of headlines they might have on another day, and who probably benefits from a reminder of what a different style of government looked like not so very long ago. What it also was, though, was a reminder for many people at home of a very difficult time when they were making personal sacrifices that were very painful and made more painful by a feeling that others weren't doing the same.
You said you loved me. You don't work now.
No.
My mum died in a care home on her own. Lots of other families as well. Last time they saw their loved ones was when they got into an ambulance.
For Kim Nottage, whose mother died during lockdown without her loved ones around her, this was an important moment.
And nothing but the truth, so help me God.
Watching Boris Johnson face MPs' questions about the rules her family followed, but he was fined for breaking.
He was leading the country, so he was telling us what we had to do and how we had to follow. So how can he then say he didn't think he broke the rules?
The session saw 3 hours and 20 minutes of denial,
Hand on heart that I did not lie to the House.
disbelief
Would it not have been obvious to you that the event was in breach of the guidance?
No.
and drama.
People who say that we were partying in lockdown simply do not know what they are talking about.
The former PM claimed events like these leaving drinks were essential for work, and that this garden party was also within the guidelines because his advisers told him so.
You did not take proper advice.
I did say, this is complete nonsense.
The rules said that you had to observe social distancing if possible. And in Downing Street, that obviously wasn't always possible.
I thought Boris Johnson equipped himself very well, actually. I think he offered a very robust defence there. I think the evidence he provided actually addressed a lot of the points that are there.
Order, order.
But when Boris Johnson's evidence was paused so he could go and vote against Rishi Sunak's Brexit deal,
the ayes have it, unlock!
Only 21 other Tory backbenchers joined his rebellion.
That concludes our session today.
Still, the Boris Johnson show isn't over yet. The latest episode finished on a cliffhanger, and it's this committee writing the script for the next instalment. Louisa James, Good Morning Britain.
Well, that is our top story. We're going to be talking about that in various ways throughout the morning, aren't we? We'd love to know what you think.
Get in touch with us. Did you hear anything, if you saw it or you've read the reports, did you hear anything from what Boris Johnson said that has changed your opinion about whether you believe he did sort of mislead Parliament or whether actually you think he's done enough to disprove that?
And did you watch thinking, oh, this is so long ago, we just need to move on, nobody will ever really know, those kind of sort of emotions? Or did you think, actually, this is still horrifying me? I mean, it maybe partly depends on whether you feel personally affected by following the rules to the letter that gave you some form of cost, either financially or personally or whatever. But, yeah, it'd be interesting to know whether hearing him speak, what emotions it brought forward for
Or
you.
do you believe that the committee got anywhere with it as well? Peter says the Privileged Committee did all they could to stop Boris Johnson making a political comeback. I think they failed in their mission to bring him down, whereas James says that should be the end of his political career. He was destroyed even after his pathetic 20-minute speech at the start. So it feels like people are divided already.
But are they divided in the way they were before it started, or has
really
it
interested to
changed
know if what
mine?
he said changed your opinion on what of him previous to the committee, and actually whether you feel like, you know, they've done enough, he's done enough, or whether actually it should be the end.
I mean, we are going to be discussing this and looking at the paper's take on it, which you can imagine some papers have had a bit of fun with it. Others are very clear where their loyalty lies. And we're going to have author Jenny Kleeman and journalist Angela Epstein. But first, Ranveer has got the rest of the day's news. You were listening yesterday, weren't you?
Yeah, I was. And it's interesting what you're saying there, because a couple of times I just thought, honestly, it's a lot of taxpayers' money. It's these dates, what difference would it have made, whether they did it or not? Did it affect what was going on in the rest of the country? And then all of a sudden it would hit me like a ton of bricks, where my mum was poorly recently, and if I couldn't have been there, like thousands of people couldn't be there. My mum's fine now, but, you know, people died. And the idea that you couldn't say goodbye to somebody on May the 18th, on those dates when they were perhaps together in a way to say thank you, or somebody's, or the Prime Minister's birthday.
Well, doesn't bring
where
that
it was essential,
back,
you know,
but it adds to the pain tremendously.
Those are moments you can't have back. You can say happy birthday later. You can say thank you to staff later. You can't say goodbye ever again. And it did make me it made me very emotional thinking about it. But I think, as you say, you've been through so much, Kate. Those dates mean something different to you than they mean to me.
23rd of March today.
Yeah.
23rd today, yes.
I had to check myself, having been very clear when I started that sentence. It's 23rd of March today, and Derek was already ill, but we didn't know 3 years ago now. And then it was another 4 or 5 days before he went into hospital, before Boris got ill at the beginning of lockdown. Couldn't get in the ambulance, couldn't be at the hospital, you know, always going to have questions of what if, what if, what if. I'm lucky he survived. He's still battling on, but there are others this time, you know, 3 years ago, who weren't in that situation.
Yeah, it may be really interesting to see what people, you know, email in with this morning.
Yeah, do let us know.
Yeah, absolutely.